In our last video on the history of the Republic, we discussed the original Sith Empire and their grand but fruitless assault on the Republic. These Sith were a far cry from the ones we're familiar with, however. They were more of a civilization than an order, and they lacked many of the distinctive traits of later Sith Lords. You may have been wondering how the Sith got from point A to point B. If so, wonder no longer. Today, we're going to be discussing how the Sith came into their own and how the first true Sith War began.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
At the end of 5000 BBY, the Republic was well on its way to recovery from the shock of the Great Hyperspace War. The Republic itself had lost little due to the limited nature of the Sith assault, while the Sith themselves had been completely vanquished, or so the Jedi thought. What had been a thriving empire just months before was nothing but dust and echoes, as its people were all either dead or hiding in the far corners of wild space. With the Sith Empire gone, the Republic once more began to thrive and expand. The millennium following the Great Hyperspace War was called the post-mandarin period, and during it, the Republic once more began to expand, pushing the borders of wild space and reclaiming many sectors from the Hutts. As the Republic expanded, new conflicts sprang up all over the galaxy, but wherever the fires of war burned, the Jedi and the Republic army were quick to put an end to the fighting. Using the first modern lightsabers, Jedi and their Republic rocket jumper allies put an end to the Gank massacres of 4800 BBY, the Qel-Droma Reconquista of 4225 BBY, the Battle of Lorel in 4030 BBY, and the Kusaya border conflict 4007 years before the Battle of Yavin. There were two more serious conflicts in this period as well. 4250 BBY saw the Jedi Order have a third Great Schism, which ended when the surviving Dark Jedi rebels destroyed the entire Voltar system, killing themselves in the process. In 4015 BBY, the galaxy also experienced the Great Droid Revolution, which the Jedi quickly stopped. In the last years of the post-Mandarin period, the Republic also started to have serious trouble with the Mandalorian Crusaders, then led by Mandalore the Indomitable. Under his leadership, many Crusaders left Mandalore and returned to their nomadic roots, ravaging worlds as they moved from place to place. Their raids began to escalate, and the Crusaders even began attacking Republic worlds. In 4024 BBY, the Crusaders wiped out the Navuta species in the Navuta extinction, and in 4017 BBY, they did the same thing to the Basiliskans. These raids were nothing, however, compared to the hell the Republic was about to endure. It began on Onderon, an unremarkable world in the slice with only one settlement, the city of Ossus, an island of civilization in a jungle full of vicious beasts. In 2400 BBY, Onderon was conquered by Freedon Nad, a dark Jedi who'd been kicked out of the Order. Unbeknownst to most of the galaxy, however, Nad wasn't just a dark Jedi, he was also a Sith Lord. After his expulsion from the Jedi Order, Nad had travelled to Yavin 4, where he encountered the remnants of the Sith. He became the apprentice of the Dark Lord Naga Sadow, who had hidden on the moon with his Massassi warriors for 600 years. Nad learned many of Sadow's secrets before killing him and leaving for Onderon. In his time as King of Ossus, Freedon Nad turned Ossus into a secret bastion of the dark side, spreading Sith teachings even among non-Force sensitives. Those who opposed his rule were banished to the jungles, which was meant as a death sentence. But some of those who were banished survived, and in time they became the Beast Riders, a second Onderonian civilization. The Beast Riders waged war against Nad and his followers, even after Nad's death. The Beast Wars of Onderon raged for about 400 years, until in 4000 BBY, Queen Aminoa of Ossus called Jedi for help in resolving the conflict. By that point, it was believed that the legacy of Freedom Nad was dead and gone, and the Jedi arrived on Onderon believing that the Beast Riders were the ones that needed to be stopped, but they quickly discovered the truth. Aminoa was an adherent to Sith teachings, and the Beast Riders were the ones who were in the right. These Jedi, a group led by Padawan Ulic Qel-Droma, his brother Qel-Droma, and fellow Padawan Nomi Sunrider, brought Aminoa to justice, deposing her and negotiating peace between Iziz and the Riders. But that was only the beginning. 2 years after the end of the Beast Wars, Sith sympathizers began an uprising in Iziz. From beyond the grave, the spectre of Freedom Nad had been manipulating his successors the whole time, and as a result, the Sith teachings were far stronger on Onderon than the Jedi had suspected. The same Jedi who had ended the Beast Wars, with the help of Master Arca-Jeth, put down the uprising, but in the chaos, they had failed to stop Nad's teachings from escaping Onderon. 2 visiting nobles from the Empress Teta system, Satal and Alima Keto, made contact with Nad's spectre, as did Exar Kun, an arrogant Jedi who was well on his way to the dark side. Nad taught the Keto cousins Sith sorcery and helped them claim a trove of dark side artifacts, and then he guided Kun to Korriban. In Korriban's Valley of the Dark Lords, Nad goaded Kun into embracing the dark side, and from there, he led the fallen Jedi to Yavin 4, where he guided him to the remnants of Naga Sadow's empire in exile. Kun quickly mastered Sith techniques that Sadow had left records of, allowing him to subjugate the Massassi. Determining that he no longer needed Freedom Nad, Kun destroyed his would-be master's spectre and claimed the title of Dark Lord of the Sith. Meanwhile, Satal and Alima Keto returned home and formed an organization called the Krath, a dark side cult that quickly spread through the Teta system. The Krath launched a violent coup and seized control of the system and defeated a Republic fleet sent in to stop them. Fearing that the rise of the Krath was the start of a new Sith threat, the Jedi Order called a conclave to discuss the matter on Dagobah. The conclave was interrupted, however, by Krath war droids, who killed many Jedi, including Ulic Qel-Droma's master, before being destroyed. Filled with grief, Qel-Droma vowed to stop the Krath menace and volunteered to infiltrate the Krath to bring them down. He traveled to the Emperor's Teta system and met with Satal and Alima, but instead of stopping them, he ultimately fell to the dark side himself, killing Satal but allying himself with Alima. Sensing the young Jedi's fall, Exar Kun traveled to Koros Major to kill Ulic, fearing that Qel-Droma would soon become a rival. But as Kun and Qel-Droma fought, they were interrupted by a vision of ancient Sith Lord Marka Ragnos, who commanded them to stop fighting. Ragnos proclaimed them both to be the new lords of the Sith, with Kun being the master and Qel-Droma being the apprentice. When the vision faded, Kun and Qel-Droma agreed to an alliance, and vowed to destroy the Republic between them. So began the Great Sith War. Kun and Qel-Droma wasted no time in beginning their offensive. Using the Dark Reaper, a Sith artifact Kun had recovered on Yavin, Qel-Droma began to expand Krath's space, conquering several worlds near the Empress Teta and winning the allegiance of the Tapani sector, which included the shipyards of Fondor. Qel-Droma also encountered the Mandalorian Crusaders, and after beating Mandalore the Indomitable in a duel, he won their allegiance as well. Meanwhile, Exar Kun traveled to Ossus, the Jedi homeworld, where he covertly began turning young Jedi to the dark side. To cover for Kun's activities, Qel-Droma launched the Dark Reaper campaign, cutting a bloody swath across the Tyon cluster. The ancient Sith superweapon annihilated whole Republic armies on Macam Tay and Raxus Prime, but Ulic had mixed feelings about using it and covertly tipped the Jedi off on how to destroy it. In a battle at Thule, they did exactly that, and at the same time, Qel-Droma took advantage of their distraction to conquer the shipyards of Forost. From Forost, Qel-Droma and the Krath attacked Coruscant itself. They carved a swath through Galactic City, but at the last minute, Qel-Droma was betrayed by Alima Keto, who recalled the Krath forces and allowed him to be captured. Outraged over the attack, the Galactic Senate held a publicized trial for Qel-Droma, which they hoped would help reassure the Republic that they had things under control. However, in the middle of the trial, Exar Kun barged in, paralyzed the whole Senate with the Force, freed Qel-Droma, murdered both the Supreme Chancellor and his former master, and left just as suddenly as he arrived. Understandably, this took the Republic from a state of concern to one of sheer panic. They had good reason to be terrified. Upon being freed, Qel-Droma began the Krath Holy Crusade, in which Sith fleets cut a bloody swath across the Republic from the core to the outer rim. Meanwhile, the Mandalorians launched their own crusades, cutting across wild space to attack Iridonia and moving up the Polemian toward Ossus. The Jedi stopped their advance, but around the same time, they themselves were under threat. On Exar Kun's orders, hundreds of fallen Jedi rose up and butchered their masters, joining Exar's Brotherhood of the Sith and attacking Republic forces. Emboldened by these early victories, Kun and Qel-Droma landed on Ossus, the homeworld of the Jedi, under the cover of the Jedi infighting, intending to loot several sacred Jedi sites. There, Qel-Droma came face to face with his brother, Kay, who he fought and killed in a duel. Horrified by what he'd done, Qel-Droma abandoned the Sith and surrendered to Nomi Sunrider, who stripped him of his Force powers and took him prisoner. At around the same time, Krath fleets led by Alima Keto were moving toward Ossus along the Polemian, led by Naga Sadow's ancient flagship, the Corsair. During a battle in the Kron Cluster, a collection of a dozen stars near Ossus, Alima used the super weapon aboard the Corsair to rip out the core of a nearby star, as Exar Kun had suggested she do. But this was a trick, a repayment for her earlier betrayal of Ulik. That maneuver caused all the stars in the cluster to supernova at once, annihilating all ships present. The resultant cataclysm devastated Ossus, cleansing the planet of life. Most of the Jedi were able to escape before the cataclysm struck, however, and they moved their base of operations to a new temple on Coruscant. The destruction of Ossus was the greatest victory of the Brotherhood of the Sith, but fortunately, it would also be their last. Following the death of Alima Keto and Qel-Droma's surrender, the Krath were left leaderless, and the Republic launched a massive counter-offensive against their fleets, annihilating them at Kemplex 9, Boontar, Fondor, Jindin, and Gamor. Around the same time, the Mandalorian Crusaders were defeated in a battle above Onderon, and Mandalore the Indomitable was overwhelmed and killed by beasts on Duxon, Onderon's moon. Exar Kun suddenly found himself the last leader of the Brotherhood, and as his fallen followers were defeated by the Jedi all over the galaxy, he retreated to Yavin 4. Republic fleets followed him there, however, and they bombed the moon to hell, setting fire to its jungles. The Massassi were wiped out and Exar Kun vanished, presumably dead. The Great Sith War was over just as suddenly as it had begun. The war only lasted for a single year, 3,996 BBY to be exact. Its impact, however, was immense. It was just the first of the old Sith Wars, but the tales of the others will have to wait for next week when we release our next video on Republic history. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.